The Alumni Association is proud to bring you today's Arthur L. Johnson Urban Perspectives Lecture Series program, Opportunities in Detroit. The lecture series is named in honor of the late Arthur L. Johnson, a passionate and inspiring leader at Wayne State for over 30 years. Arthur was highly respected and well known for his activism for civil rights, his passion for the arts, and of course his dedication to education. His work at Wayne State began in 1965 when he joined the university as a part-time sociology faculty member while simultaneously serving as DPS superintendent for school and community relations. In 1972, Arthur became vice president of the university relations and also continued teaching as a professor of educational psychology before retiring in 1995, at which point he was serving as Wayne State's senior vice president for university relations. Regardless of his role at Wayne State, Arthur had a special impact on all who were fortunate enough to call him colleague, instructor, and friend. Since its inception upon his retirement, the Arthur L. Johnson Urban Perspectives Lecture Series has brought to campus nearly 50 speakers whose topics have focused on education, politics, the arts, and a variety of other areas of urban interest. Both Wayne State and the city of Detroit are markedly better for the tremendous impact Arthur has made. Before we start, I'd like to ask that everybody please take a moment and silence your cell phones, pagers, and other electronic devices. I'd also like to note that if you have a question for Mr. Cullen, we do have some question cards that were passed out when you came to the auditorium today. Please fill out your questions on those cards, and we'll be around to pick those up for our Q&A session at the end of the lecture. Now at this time, it is my pleasure to formally introduce Wayne State's 12th President, M. Roy Wilson. President Wilson was unanimously elected president by the Board of Governors and started his tenure on August 1st of 2013. An accomplished researcher, practitioner, and academic leader, he joined Wayne State most recently from the National Institutes of Health, where he served as Deputy Director for Strategic Scientific Planning and Program Coordination at the National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities. President Wilson has held numerous other leadership positions at universities around the country, and his vast body of medical-related research earned him a place on the list of best doctors in America for 14 consecutive years. President Wilson received his undergraduate degree from Allegheny College, an MS in epidemiology from the University of California at Los Angeles, and an MD from Harvard Medical School. We are thrilled to have his leadership and expertise at Wayne State, and in the last 15 months, I've personally witnessed President Wilson, as well as his wife, Mrs. Jacqueline Wilson, who is also here supporting the lecture today, do great work to engage our alumni, campus community, and our city. It's my profound pleasure to introduce our university leader to you today. Please join me in welcoming President M. Roy Wilson.
Thank you, Ty. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So welcome to Wayne State University. This is a great lecture series. It's one of the favorite things I like to do. Thank you for joining us today. If you happen to drive by Woodward anytime on your way over here maybe, or anytime since this summer, you know that it's a mess. You're right. It's a mess. Okay.
It's a bad start.
But it is investing in Detroit. And I just urge you to have patience, because the inconvenience will be well worth it when it's complete. The construction of the M1 rail is a key driver of the investment and development happening here in Detroit. The M1 rail will serve as an artery connecting Detroit neighborhoods and spurring further investment in new restaurants, shops, and housing along its path. And the M1 project is just one of many initiatives and investments that are changing the face, the image, and the spirit of Detroit. Detroit has turned a page on the bankruptcy. It is now a city of opportunity. That's partly because of the courage and commitment of investors like Rock Ventures. Now, the speaker today will be properly introduced in a moment, but I would just like to say that we're fortunate to have its president and CEO, Matt Cullen, with us today. Wayne State, too, is hard-working and continue to be very positive about Detroit. We've been part of Detroit for nearly 150 years. and have been a stepping stone to success for generations of students. We are a powerhouse, research-extensive university known for academic excellence, but we also never forget that we are here to serve our students and our community through pioneering research, through education, through community engagement and leadership. You all know that we launched an ambitious $750 million fundraising campaign last fall called Pivotal Moments. This campaign celebrates the pivotal moments Wayne State has helped create in people's lives, and will allow the university to strengthen our endowment, invest in our faculty, upgrade and build educational spaces, and most importantly, provide support for our diverse student population, an initiative long championed by community leaders like Arthur L. Johnson. Arthur was a civil rights activist, author, and educator. A classmate of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. at Morehouse College, he came to Detroit in 1950 and grew the Detroit branch of the NAACP from 6,000 members to 60,000 in just 10 years. He was one of the first Black Detroiters to hold high office in the public school system, and for 23 years, he served as an administrator at Wayne State University. This lecture is just one way we honor Arthur's life, his work, and his passion for the things he believed to be important for our community. He was steadfast in his convictions, and through his determination, set the groundwork for many of the pivotal moments that have occurred at Wayne State and throughout this city. Today, we are pleased to welcome Matt Cullen to campus to speak about the M1 Rail project and the transformative opportunities it's creating for Detroit. And thank you, Matt, and thank you all for joining us.
It is my pleasure at this time to introduce the aforementioned Mr. Matt Cullen, CEO of M1 Rail and President and CEO of Rock Ventures LLC, the umbrella entity formed to provide operational coordination, guidance, and integration to Dan Gilbert's portfolio of companies and investments. Mr. Cullen also has responsibility for Gilbert's Opportunity Detroit initiative, which is an effort to spark development and revitalization in the city. In addition to leading the M1 Rail Streetcar Initiative, Mr. Cullen is also chairman of Invest Detroit, vice chair of the Downtown Detroit Partnership, a member of the Detroit Zoological Executive Committee, and serves in a leadership capacity with many other city and state organizations. Mr. Cullen also helped oversee the $1 billion redevelopment of the city's international riverfront as the founding chairman of the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy. It's pretty easy to see that Mr. Cullen is a man who cares about our city and is invested in helping it grow to new heights. Please join me in welcoming leader and Detroit native, Mr. Matt Cullen.
Thank you, Ty. Good afternoon, everybody. President Wilson, it's great to be here for the Arthur Johnson series of lectures. I actually had the opportunity to participate in one with Arthur Johnson at the time and talk about some of the great things that were taking place in the city. In my previous life, I was at General Motors for a long time. I was there for almost 29 years, and we were partners here in the New Center area and doing a lot of things here on campus. And so I had a long-standing relationship with the university, and it's great to be here. What I thought I would do today is I'm certainly going to talk about M1, and I think notwithstanding the introduction, that would cause a little bit of traffic upheaval, so I apologize for that. But it's certainly a big project which is taking place in the city. But I thought maybe we could give a little context to what's taking place in the city, because we had the opportunity to do that a lot because people come into town, and we just did this recently with the auto show, and people come into town with a real perspective is what they're going to see in the city. And we had the opportunity sometimes to share a different side of it with them. And of course, you get the opportunity to see that up close and personal as well. So I pulled together a few slides that sort of give the backdrop for people when we give them some context, and then I'll come around to the M1 piece as well. So we share with them, the history of the city that they're familiar with. I mean, this great, vibrant city that literally changed the world with the assembly line and the arsenal of democracy and those kinds of things. So we share that with people, and we talk about what a powerful city this was and how it created the middle class and had such an impact on our community. Ironically, here we see the streetcars, that's our biggest construction challenge, is pulling out the old streetcar rails to put new ones down. So I'm not sure what happened there, but we probably could have done better from an efficiency standpoint. But the music that changed the world as well with Motown and the Hudson's department store, where literally the city came together and interacted with everybody. Everybody has a story about how they saw Santa Claus and did all of the things. So it's an incredibly vibrant city, Briggs Stadium, and with a rich history. But by the time Dan Gilbert, so I'm going to I got different pronouns that I'll use here. I was at General Motors for a long time. I've been involved in trying to do things with the city since the New Center Commons and Tech Town and a whole bunch of other things that we've all worked on together. But by the time I joined Dan in 2008, we talked about coming down to the city of Detroit. And here's what we were confronted with at the time. So this is 2010, right? This is the headline in the Time magazine saying the tragedy of Detroit. And they analogized it to the natural disaster that took place in New Orleans with Katrina. And they said, look, I'm sure all of you are familiar with it. They had somebody come and live here for a year, and they wrote all these different stories. And I mean, they talked about it like the city that was done and almost could be discarded. And yet it's really interesting for those of us, and I'm sure that includes many in this room that have been here for a long time and have been engaged in different aspects of it. 2010, things were looking up, and in a surprising way, right? Because the city of Detroit's been bankrupt for 10 or 20 years, and we just didn't acknowledge it. We had all kinds of problems with corruption and challenges and white flight and this and that, and a really, by the time General Motors made the decision to buy the Renaissance Center in 1996, there was nothing going on in the city. And that was really, in many ways, in my mind, sort of the low point. And from that point, the CompuWares came and the stadiums came and some of the other things came. So, but nonetheless, this was sort of the moment in time when people talked about, hey, look at what a challenge we have as a city. But our message to everybody is Detroit's story is still being written, and we changed the world before, and that we can do it again. And what's really, I think, really exciting for all of us is that people are rooting for that to happen, and they're getting engaged in a really profound way in doing that. So let me just give you a little bit of orientation. So Rock Ventures is essentially, think of it as everything that Dan Gilbert owns and controls from an investment standpoint. A wide array of companies, obviously Quicken Loans and the Cleveland Cavaliers and Fathead and some of the others are the more visible, but a wide array of companies. And in 2010, we said, look, we're going to come into the city of Detroit, we're going to make our headquarters, and we're going to work to affect the outcome. We're going to try and change the trajectory, working with a lot of other people, including Wayne State and General Motors and partners that have been in the city for 100 years and more. But we want to try and change the trajectory of what's going on in the city, and we want to put all of our collective resources behind that. So we've done it in a very visible way relative to real estate investments, and you've seen that. We're $1.6 billion now invested in Detroit, 10 million square feet, 70 properties, 200 tenants recruited. It's great to do real estate, but it's a lot better to do real estate and then fill up the buildings, right? And bring folks downtown, not only team members, but other companies as well. So, and these cool buildings in the city of Detroit, we had this incredible architecture that had really, in many ways, been abandoned. So here's one of the first buildings we worked on, the Madison Theater building, right off of Woodward by the Opera House in downtown. This building had been empty for 25 years, just sitting dormant, and we were able to come in there and buy it and transform it into probably the coolest high-tech building in the Midwest, and it's written up that way. And now we have our Detroit Venture Partners, which is our venture capital group that's in there, and we really are creating a sort of an ecosystem of innovation and investment, and it's working out really well. Great rooftop event to look out over the stadium, and a lot of fun. This is a Chrysler House, former Dime Bank building. Many of you will remember it that way. It had been essentially empty for a long time. Now it's some of the coolest space. You see that vault space at the top right down there, and that's a conference room now. And taking advantage of this architecture and getting people into this really energized, high-tech, fun space has been great. Here's a real terrific example. Federal Reserve it was a big, fortress where all the money was in the basement, right? And gun turrets and everything else. So it wasn't a very open, accessible building, obviously. Matt Rossetti, who's one of the significant local architecture firms, whose entire firm moved out of the city of Detroit into Southfield and the suburbs, came back downtown and made this their signature project. And you can see, again, what a fabulous place it is, the rooftop, fireplaces, just a very different city of Detroit. And now that's starting, so that started with the office. Now the retail is starting. So this 1500 Woodward building, which is really a great building on the east side of Woodward. We got John Varvatos, which is a very famous clothes designer that grew up in Allen Park, who's come back here. This is the Wright and Company restaurant. We were talking earlier just before here about the people that are moving up and down Woodward now to hit the different restaurants and activities that are taking place. Other retailers, Mojo Kicks, Seven Greens, lots of retail is starting to take place. We have a lot of additional announcements. We've actually been timing the retail announcements and investments to coincide with the M1 investment, because we didn't want to, open a bunch of stores and then have the traffic disruption and so on. And so we've been working collectively with the businesses to work on that. And it's not just office, and it's not just retail. Residential is booming in downtown and midtown Detroit. And the Live Midtown project that the president and Wayne State have been involved with is a big piece of that. And the same thing's taking place downtown now. The downtown and midtown were never big residential areas in the city of Detroit's history, but they are now. And people are flocking into these different areas. Occupancy is essentially 100%. I mean, it's really difficult to find an apartment now. And significant transformation is starting to take place. This Auburn was a project with the university where small apartments were sort of pioneered, and it's worked out great. Significant waiting list, great amenity for the area. Broderick Tower, empty for 25 years, looking right out over Grand Circus Park. That was renovated, it was opened about 18 months ago or so. The day it was 100% occupancy, and it's been great ever since. Same with the David Whitney building, which is just now opening. And so these tremendous architectural achievements are now being reclaimed in a terrific way for us. So we're working hard on what we'll call the hardware side of what's taking place in the city, right? Sort of that piece of it. But a lot of it, too, is creating an environment where you get the raw material of a successful community. I mean, a lot of it is getting kids and students and celebrating what's taking place at Wayne State and attracting people. I mean, I was chair of the MEDC for a long time, and we identified what our challenges were, and a lot of it was that we were exporting the raw material of success, right? Because the kids that get a diploma from Wayne State and Michigan and Michigan State, and the joke was they'd get two pieces of paper. They get their diploma and they get a ticket to Chicago or Boston or somewhere else, right? They were leaving because there wasn't things here for them to do. And so you need to try and change that as well. So we were excited. When we came down here, we rock now. There was a lot of news, appropriately, that we were coming downtown. We're bringing all these people downtown. And it's absolutely true. We brought 3,800 people down here. What's more exciting for us in a lot of ways is we've hired 6,500 people new since we came down. So that's created great opportunities for us to hire Detroiters, for us to hire new folks, to create density in what's taking place downtown. And it's a lot of it's young, high-tech kind of jobs. It's Dan likes to say we're really a tech company that happens to do mortgages or happens to do title or happens to do something else. We're really tech focused. And so the graduates of Wayne and these other universities are something that we can really put to work. We bought the Greektown Casino, which you're familiar with as well. So we're really excited now that we as Rock Ventures, if you will, have more than 12,000 team members in downtown Detroit. And that's really making a significant difference. But it's not just, and that's great, and a lot of others are doing this too. So I'll touch on what Rock is doing at times, but the Illiches are doing it, General Motors is doing it, Blue Cross is doing it, Wayne State's doing it, lots of our partners are doing it. One thing that we are doing a little bit different though, which has been really impactful for us, is our intern program. I mean, Dan really had the idea a couple years ago that we need to expose young folks to what's taking place in the city of Detroit. And we're a tech company, so the reason we've been able to scale like we did is because we're in an urban area where folks want to come to. So we want to showcase for them what's taking place in the city, what our array, our family of companies, we like to call it, has to show. And we like to steal all their good ideas. Well, they're young and they don't know what they're worth. So we bring them all in and we expose them to what's taking place in the city. So we had more than 1,000 interns in 2013, more than 1,000 in 2014. We're going to do the same this year. And we not only bring them in, but we showcase for them what's taking place in the city. So we'll take them to the Tiger game. We'll take them to the DIA. We'll take them to the riverfront. We showcase for them what's taking place. And people just get transformed as to how they see the city. And it's not just the people that come in from Boston or LA or somewhere else that have that sort of epiphany. It's just as likely to be somebody from Clarkston or Ferndale or somewhere else where they just don't get downtown and they didn't understand what's taking place down here. And they suddenly say, you know what, this is a very different place than I thought. And I could see myself coming back here and having a career here and making a life here. And that's terrific. So, talked about hardware, talked about software, if you will, which is the people. It's really interesting. I want to hit on this a little bit, and then I'm moving to the M1 piece, is placemaking. I mean, I never really focused on this, although, as I said, I've sort of been involved in economic development, trying to do things for the city for a long time. Never really focused on the connective tissue, I guess I'll call it, that brings people and buildings and so on together. And in some places, it's just serendipity, and in some places, you can really work to create that kind of environment that gets people out of the buildings. I mean, we bought a bunch of these buildings downtown. If you don't pull the people out of the buildings and have them interact with each other, it's no different than when we were out in Livonia, on both sides of the big asphalt parking lot with Costco next door. I mean, there's no sort of city, there's no connectivity if you don't have that kind of energy. And so we've kind of defined that now as placemaking. And we brought in some of the best guys from around the world, literally, to help us do that. And I think the success is really very significant. Campus Martius Park has gone from being a cool space, but that wasn't really active. I mean, you kind of see it and say, that's cool. There's a fountain there and there's some other stuff going on. But now, around throughout the year, it's packed. And it's packed with kids, kids like 5-year-old kids playing in the beach. As you can see here in the bottom right, it's music, it's activities all of the time. It's just tremendous connectivity. It's a place where our community comes together that before the riverfront and Campus Martius didn't exist. I mean, I grew up in Detroit, and there just wasn't a place in downtown where you'd see baby carriages and people walking their dogs and everybody kind of interacting in a great way. And this is an example of that. I love to show this picture to people out of town, and it's like, hey, where is this? And no one ever guesses Detroit, I'll tell you that. And this is right out of the window at the Computer building. And this is at the tree lighting ceremony. And that shows the kind of energy and activity. And it used to be that was the tree lighting ceremony, and then there'd be another event or two, and it would look like that. It looks like that a lot now. And it's a lot of fun with all the things taking place. Next to Campus Martius is Cadillac Square, and now we're starting with Marketplace and food trucks and different events there. Holiday Market, we had an igloo there this winter, that the kids could go in and buy presents for their parents, and a lot of things taking place along those lines. So we're working hard on that. It's not just those spaces. It's Grand Circus we're opening up. Capitol Park, I mean, for those of you that haven't been there lately, the transformation in the last couple of years is unbelievable. And in 2 or 3 years, Capitol Park's going to be the coolest district in the city of Detroit. I mean, the residential and the art and the things that are starting to take place there. So great changes taking place there. The Riverfront Conservancy is certainly one worth highlighting too that I like to show people. So this was our riverfront in 1996 or something. Actually, that was a little later than that because the new deck was already in the background. But when General Motors bought the Renaissance Center, you could not physically walk from the Renaissance Center to the water. There's 3 levels of road. You could not walk out of the building and get there. And if you went east along there, it was bombed out buildings and abandoned cars. And I mean, it was remarkably bad. And when we started, we looked across and we really had waterfront envy. We look at Windsor and go, look at that beautiful waterfront. I mean, why can't we do that? And so we set about to try and do that. And the transformation has been pretty remarkable. It's going to be 5.5 miles of perpetual public access from the MacArthur Bridge at Belle Isle down to the Ambassador Bridge on the west side. It's been a tremendous community project. We've raised almost all of the money philanthropically. We stole a valuable Wayne State asset to help us do that with Faye Nelson, and she was the CEO and had done just a tremendous job. And this is really, I think, the first place where our community started to say, you know, we can do this. We can take on these hard projects, and we can have a public-private partnership, and we can have everybody in a room, and we can have fun, diverse, active groups where you got everything from Tai Chi to yoga to, you know, kids' activities taking place, all on this spectacular waterfront. And I have it on good authority that our friends at Windsor are looking across now and saying, maybe we can do better. So, we created places for people to come together in the city of Detroit that didn't exist. When I was at General Motors, we put these fountains out in back of the Ren Center, and they're cool. They had the intermittent water would come up and so on. And they were supposed to be sort of an art feature, but they turned out to be kids of all ages would play in these things throughout the day, and it was the most fun. They weren't plumbed properly for kids of all ages to be in there all the time, so we had to shut it down for a year and redo it. But it is now, but we took that as, hey, look, what can we do even better than that? And so the Riverfront Conservancy took on building a water park at Mount Elliott Park. Most of you have probably never been to Mount Elliott Park. You didn't even know it existed, but it's been there a long time. But now we've opened it up in this great way to bring the kids of the community together and enjoy this, you know, in season for free, and it's a lot of fun. Historical buildings where Henry Ford was an apprentice are now the anchor of a state park, and climbing walls and campouts and campfires and all of the things taking place there, again, is very different. Just a couple months ago, we opened up the West Riverfront. Remember I said we want to be 5.5 miles? This is the West Riverfront, sort of looking from towards from the Ambassador Bridge back towards the city. And that was just last year. And here's what it looks like now. And we were able to open a big piece of it, about 20 acres of it, for activities, for soccer. And I mean, the whole southwest Detroit is right next to this river and has no access to it at all. And suddenly we're opening it up for Corktown and Mexicantown and all those kinds of things. And so it's going to be very significant. So that's kind of the backdrop to the cool stuff that's taking place in the city, and it's sort of our response to people when they ask us what's going on. And then when they talk about what's next, we like to talk about the M1 rail project. And it's a great project, 6.6 miles. It's not really 6.6 miles, but Gilbert makes me say that. It's really 3.3 miles, but we were in Cincinnati working on a project, and the mayor there was telling us about this $100 million project that's 6.6 miles. And Dan says, how come ours costs $100 million plus and we're only 3.3 miles? And the mayor says, it goes both ways, doesn't it? So since then, he requires me to say it's 6.6 miles. But this takes us from the riverfront essentially up just past the boulevard up into the north end. And we think it's going to be a transformative project. 12 stops along the corridor, $140 million capital cost, $5 million operating costs. And you can see several stations approximate to Wayne State. When Secretary LaHood came in a couple of years ago, he said this project's going to be in the history books. This project we essentially funded, you know, very significantly through philanthropy, and Wayne State was certainly a participant in that. We raised more than $100 million philanthropically because, and this is in the toughest time, right? The city's going bankrupt, GM went bankrupt, Chrysler went bankrupt. Through the midst of all that, we raised the money to build this. Because we had benchmarked around the country and we saw what an impact this kind of transit project could have. And we think it really can be the foundation for transit in our region. So not to suggest that this is the answer. This gets us up and down and connects all these great things taking place on Woodward. But it also gets us to the Amtrak station and does that. But it can be a demonstration of what we can do together from a transit standpoint. We need to do the bus rapid transit. We were able to get the Regional Transit Authority approved as a part of this. So it really becomes a genesis for a lot of other great things. But by itself, it's really important as well. So great partners came together. Again, an example of you know, sort of stretching our muscles a little bit on these public-private partnerships, because they're not easy. And but we were able to pull it together despite some sort of confusing periods of time during the Kilpatrick administration, shall we say. It connects people in place. it's really important. You know, it's funny, it's a transit project, but it really is a huge pedestrian enabler when you benchmark these things around the country. Because this isn't a high-speed rail, right? This is a streetcar that stops every couple of blocks, and you can jump on and go up 4 blocks to the restaurant. You can say, hey, I know that new restaurant is kind of that Wright & Company. I know it's up there, but I don't know exactly where. Well, you wouldn't before have walked 8 blocks to get there necessarily. You wouldn't have gotten your car and gone and parked. We were kidding about nobody from Wayne State would go and leave and come back because you'd never have a parking spot when you came back, right? So, but so it connects people and in places in a really significant way. It connects you from downtown to midtown, from midtown to the new center, and then from the new center up to the north end. And it really is about connectivity. We made tremendous progress in 2014. We had our groundbreaking in July. We had sort of our second funding piece that we pulled together. We've raised all the money that we need to build it, and we've raised the money that we need to operate it for the initial 10-year period of time. So it's exciting now to be underway with it. The construction has been disruptive, no doubt about that. It was probably most disruptive in the downtown because we had to close between Campus Martius and Grand Circuit. We actually had to close Woodward for a period of a few months. The rest of the time, we'll have two-way traffic maintained at all times, and so it will be hopefully a little bit less impactful, but we clearly are making great progress towards a very different city. Looking ahead, I mean, here's a picture kind of looking at Wayne State in the far right, if you will, from the north side, where the Amtrak station, the viaduct there, M1 coming through, and then connecting into a lot of the things that are taking place at Wayne State. So that's exciting for us. The timeline, we're going to be done by the end of next year. And so the project is going very well from a timing perspective, probably third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter. We've had the design on the stations are going to be very different than things that you've seen here before. Very modern, very comfortable, much different than the sort of traditional bus stops that you've seen. The Penske Technical Center will be just north of the boulevard, kind of where Lely's used to be for you long-standing Detroiters. And that's going to be a technical hub. We actually hope to assemble some of the cars there and do some other things there. Worth making a point that it is transit for sure, but it's also economic development. And when we benchmarked around the country, Portland has had billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars of economic development along the route of their streetcar system. Atlanta, Tucson, DC, Washington, DC, very similar kind of outcomes. We think that there's going to be $3 billion worth of economic development along this 6.6 miles. And we think 10,000 residential units. So, and this isn't like pie in the sky. I mean, we know the projects that are underway, and we're really very confident that it's going to take place. I mean, it really changes the nature of the city. Those same college graduates that we were talking about before, one of the things they want is an area where they can live, work, and play without getting in a car every 5 minutes. A lot of them don't even want to own a car. They graduate from school without owning a car, and they want to be in a community where they can continue to do that. So this is just an example, obviously, of some of the things that are starting to take place. Techtown is great. The Illiches, we've been working with them right from the beginning as to how do we tie all that together. So it's really starting. And we're doing it thoughtfully to what's been here before, right? I mean, and so we've been doing it in full coordination with the DIA, so we don't want to block that, and we don't want to have vibrations messing up the musicians of the DSO, and we want to be able to maintain traditions like the Thanksgiving Day Parade. And so even this year, in the midst of the construction, we were able to pull that off, and I'm a distinguished clown in the parade every year, so it's a lot of fun. And so we were actually out there and able to do it around the construction activity. So we like to say, look, there's a lot going on here in the city. M1's going to continue to build on it. A lot of things are continuing to build on it. I know that the university has some great plans to continue to build on it, and it feels very different than sort of the flares that went up in the past when we were talking about economic development. You'd have one project here and one project there. This feels much more sort of organic, and a small people are trying to, the small business finds a place in between these big projects, and the residential is a totally different level of foundation and so on, and so it's exciting. A lot of people coming together to make it work. all of the different, I mean, the retail stuff is going to take off, the Blue Crosses and the DTEs. Everybody's starting to do things with their own campus, and more importantly, everybody's starting to figure out ways. I mentioned connectivity a couple times, but how do we connect it all so that it creates this really vibrant neighborhood, series of neighborhoods where you can interact and interact with your neighbors and people in the community in a different way. And our plan is by 2020, which doesn't leave us a lot of time, but we're going to have a totally different Time magazine cover here. It looks a little Jetson-like, but so I'm not sure it'll look exactly like that. But we really do think that we can collectively build on the momentum that we have to have a profoundly different city over the course of the next several years. Celebrate what we've done, but we really think we're at the beginning of it. And I'll touch this just for a second on that. Because we're all working so hard on downtown, and I celebrated all these cool things happening in downtown. Detroit's 138 square miles. The downtown's 8 square miles. That leaves 130 left, right? And so I don't want to be up here talking about the great things happening in downtown without mentioning that we all recognize that Detroit's a single organism. It can't be successful with a piece of it good and the rest of it not so good, right? And so we at ROC and others have been very involved in the Blight Task Force to try and to create a way to get rid of all these blighted buildings, and we're making, together with the city, great progress on that. We've been spending a lot of time trying to understand this whole tax foreclosure thing and how that's feeding this funnel of evictions, and then the buildings get taken over by the county, and then 92% of the buildings that touch public ownership never come out because they're going to be vandalized and abandoned, and so there's lots of other things going on, and so I don't want to sort of not touch on those, but I wanted to focus today on on what's taking place in the downtown and the core of the M1 project. So let me stop talking there, and I think it's set up for me to take some questions. I'm happy to do.
And I'm going to let you stay at the mic
Okay.
here. You were talking about the Amtrak briefly. You just touched on the other 130 plus other square miles available. And our first question comes from Timothy and Troy.
Not necessarily available, but yeah, but that we need to work with, yep.
Sure, yeah. Are there any plans after this project is completed for expansion northward? And does it make sense to tie into the existing commuter Amtrak line that now runs east of the Woodward corridor?
Well, it does for sure. So this project gets us to the Amtrak station, which you've all been reading about the high-speed rail that's starting to be talked about between Ann Arbor and Chicago. This Amtrak station will allow us to connect to Dearborn, to Ann Arbor, to Chicago, and so on. So it becomes a connector for the core of downtown throughout the region. Going the other way, it gets you up to Royal Oak and Birmingham and Pontiac and so on. So it's a great start. No question that over time, fixed rail only makes sense where there's really high density. I mean, you can't make sense out of fixed rail throughout all of downtown, but you could make sense out of a series of connecting with the streetcar system in the core of downtown, straight out Woodward ultimately, perhaps up to Pontiac and so on, but the rest of the region with bus rapid transit. And one of the big things that we were able to accomplish, which has not really been focused on at all, is that after 50 years of the suburbs and the city fighting, we're actually able to collectively work on getting a regional transit authority approved. That took place a couple years ago. So that's sort of a very significant, very unheralded outcome. And a lot of work to be done on that, but we're starting to get organized, I think, as a community. And transit's a part of the future. We're not going to be successful if people can't get to their jobs and to the doctors and so on.
Great. Next question is for you personally, Matt. This comes from Alice here in Detroit. What are some of your most valuable pieces of advice to an undergraduate student pursuing a double major in business marketing and public relations?
Got to think about that. Where's Alice? All right. Graduate. Well, I mean, first off, you need to stay in Detroit. I mean, that's since we were just talking about that. Because there's a tremendous need for people with that kind of background and that kind of talent. I think, the traditional advice of find something that you enjoy doing, but I mean, it's also, I would add to that by finding a place that you enjoy doing it, because it's funny, we have 12,000 team members now downtown Detroit, ROC does, and our people have adopted, I say adopted, we probably have 25% of our people that live in the city now. But people view now as trying to make a difference in our community as a mission. I mean, and I think when I talk to young folks that are getting out of school and so on, they don't want to just have a career anymore. They want to do something that they feel personally, impactful, and that they want to make a difference. And we call it affecting the outcome, right? But and I think Detroit provides that. I mean, we also tell people, people say, well, why should I come to Detroit? It's like, it's a big city, but it's a small city. And right now you can get in on the ground floor of things, and you can be at the table with people that you wouldn't be able to be in Chicago for 20 or 30 years. And you can get involved. You can do the startups, and you can be involved as a volunteer. We need help all the time with M1 on communications and stuff, and you get engaged with people, and you interact with them, and I think it provides a lot of opportunity. So I guess it would be find something you like doing, find it here in Detroit, and get connected with other people that have similar interests that are involved in doing things in the city, and get involved in M1, and get involved in the riverfront, and get involved in some of these things, because it will make a great difference in your community. And as the saying goes, which is absolutely true, you get a lot more than you give in those circumstances, because you get to meet people. It creates the relationships that will allow you to be more successful doing what you want to do going forward.
Great. This next question is from Eric in Grosse Pointe Park. You talked a little bit about the financing for the project, philanthropy that was a part of making this happen. But please explain, if you can, exactly how tax dollars are being allocated and counted for the project.
M1. The capital side of M1 is probably $150 million. There's roughly $30 million of Tiger funding in that. So Tiger is the money that's used for transit projects in the United States. Detroit and even Michigan never really qualified for much from a Tiger perspective, because we didn't have any transit. I mean, one of the reasons that the business community and the philanthropic community chose to do M1 was because we needed to be able to demonstrate to the feds that we were actually could do a transit project, because we had failed so miserably every time in the past because of the relationship between the suburbs and the city and all of that kind of confusion, that people didn't give us credibility when we went and tried to do it. So let me just do round numbers. There's $100 million plus of philanthropy. There's roughly $30 million of the Tiger grants, and there's some money for advertising for Pure Michigan, and a few other sort of pieces that were pulled together. The state helped out on a couple other pieces. I should mention the state. It's really important that not only is the rail coming, but the most important sort of physical spine of the city of Detroit, which is Woodward Avenue, is being totally redone. I mean, laying the rail, I won't take total responsibility for messed up traffic. Laying the rail is not that big a project. What's a big project is Woodward is being totally rebuilt. So these 120-year-old wooden sewers and the streetlights that would never turn on and all of that kind of stuff, it's all being redone. And when this is completed, it's going to be a very important infrastructure utility spine. Wireless running up and down here, new LED lighting, utilities. I mean, so it's a major deal, and the state helped us with that.
Great. Here's a really good question about the previous track that you showed us pictures of in early Detroit. Is there any thought of selling salvaged old 1930s track pieces for maybe $10, $20 a piece? This is a memento of where we were and where we're going.
It's a great question. Somebody asked me that, and somebody asked me if they could get a piece, and I asked our guys, and they said yes. And so I hadn't pursued it further, but I should check on that, because I do think it's a great memento. It's heavy as heck, so it'd be a small piece, but I think it would be well worth doing. So I will endeavor to find that out.
Great, and we just have one last question before we wrap up here today. There's so many exciting things going on with the M1 Rail project and the different investments going on in the city. What in particular are you and or your company most excited about with all the different things going on here in Detroit?
Boy, there's a lot going on. Personally, I think the project that, from a personal perspective, that I'm most proud of and have been involved with for a long time is the riverfront, and just seeing the changes that have taken place. And I had the opportunity to talk to somebody earlier. we're just seeing the beginning of what's going to take place on the riverfront. I would be very surprised if in the next 5 years there wasn't 5,000 residential units built, under construction, or planned. I mean, the riverfront's going to explode from a development standpoint in the next several years, and I think that's going to be very cool to see, and it's going to continue. And it's not just the development, but it's, again, the way people come together on the riverfront, and in a very profound way. So I'm really excited about that. From a more broad standpoint, I'd say over the next couple of years, we're talking about the 3 R's of rail, retail, and residential. I think that that's going to take place in the core, and then broadening it just one more time into the neighborhoods. They're up to 1,200 homes. I don't want to call them homes because they're houses, they're abandoned buildings, right, that are being demolished now. The mayor's, which is great, because you can't, if you've got one of these abandoned buildings next to you, you can't refinance yours, you can't sell it, you can't do anything, and after a while, you walk away from it. Now we got another one, all right? It's a cancer that we need to exercise. And so I think huge progress on the neighborhoods is the other piece that I see happening. And we have to. We have a population that's 1/3 of what it used to be. Obviously, that leaves a lot of empty space, but it's not empty usable space. And we need to be really thoughtful about how we're going to try and change that. And it's going to require a lot of smart people to be involved to do that in a thoughtful way that adds up to a net outcome. And but I think we've got great political leadership now, and I think we've got great institutional leadership and business leadership. And I think the next 5 years are going to be, even more impactful than the last 5 years. So I'm excited about it.
Great.
Thanks.
How exciting is that? All the things going on in the city, from the M1 rail project to the different developments, it's just such an exciting time to be in Detroit, to be at Wayne State in Detroit, our place, our people. So again, thank you, Matt Cullen, for all that you said and shared with us today.
Absolutely.
Thank you. This is our token of our appreciation from the Alumni Association at Wayne State. We'd like to present Matt with a copy of Dr. Johnson's memoir, A Race in Remembrance.
Terrific.
Again, as a token of our appreciation for you being here today. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Like Matt said, the M1 Rail project will have a tremendous impact on Wayne State. I can speak selfishly about that. President Wilson, with his purchase of the Hecker Mansion on the corner of Ferry and Woodward, the Alumni Association will soon be moving into that facility in 2015. I understand there's probably going to be an M1 Rail stop on that corner. So when it gets built, please jump on the M1 Rail and come see us right here on campus. We'd love to have you down to visit and to see what's going on at the university. So again, thank you so much for coming today. We're looking forward to our next Arthur L. Johnson Urban Perspectives lecture this spring. We're working on finalizing our last couple of speakers, so please stay tuned for that by checking alumni.wayne.edu, the Wayne State Alumni Facebook, and our other communication channels. Again, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all for coming today.